Welcome back to the studio. It's time to get another business news update. William Edwards is here with me from the France 24 Business Desk. Good morning, William.
Hi, Catherine.
We're going to start off with more Eurozone news, as we do so often these days. But now, fresh concerns over the state of Germany's economy.
Yes, Germany has been, of course, powering through the worries about the Eurozone debt crisis, reporting growth every quarter. But that looks set to slow down, at least according to a group of think tanks who've offered a report. They say that, in fact, if things get worse in the rest of the Eurozone, Germany could even be seeing a recession.
It may be the motor of Europe, but even mighty Germany isn't immune to the Eurozone crisis. The latest forecasts are gloomy, just 1% growth for next year. For the think tanks behind the latest report, that's half what they'd initially tabled, and the reason is clear.
During next year, we will see that economic activity improves, but overall, the euro crisis is having a negative effect on Germany's economic growth.
Despite the downturn for the single currency region, Germany had stayed relatively buoyant in the past couple of years, but now Berlin risks being dragged down by the Eurozone's struggles.
The declining economies in some Eurozone countries, of course, have an impact on us, as up to 40% of our exports are in the Eurozone and up to 60% in the European Union.
Angela Merkel went even further, vowing to support the domestic market with possible tax cuts to help boost the rest of the Eurozone. Up till now, Berlin has been Europe's keenest proponent of austerity, and that break didn't meet with full approval from Merkel's own government.
There are suggestions that the European debt problems can be resolved if Germany loosens its purse strings. But that's not the case. The problem cannot be solved without reducing fiscal deficit and proceeding with structural reforms.
Germany's top two may differ on the immediate strategy, but they do agree on one thing. As Merkel herself insists, Germany can show the way, but it's up to the rest of the Eurozone to follow.
Well, if that's the situation in Germany, how are things going in Greece, which is already struggling?
Well, according to unemployment figures that came out on Thursday, things continue to get worse in Greece. In fact, unemployment has gone through the 25% barrier there. Now, yesterday, Christine Lagarde of the IMF said the country will need 2 additional years to meet its targets. That's caused a bit of consternation in Germany, where Wolfgang Schäuble, the finance minister, has said, actually, that's not the case. Austerity is the only answer. Bit of a debate going on there. Meanwhile, on the same day as that bad news about employment came out, the country suffered another blow. Coca-Cola Hellenic, one of Coke's biggest distribution arms, biggest subsidiaries, is moving out of Greece. Now, the company is the biggest one on the Athens Stock Exchange because it doesn't just deal in Greece itself, but it deals in 28 different countries. They're now going to be moving their stock exchange listing to London, their headquarters to Switzerland for those lower taxes that Switzerland is, of course, famous for. Actually, quite a few jobs will be staying in Greece because the bottling operations that are already there won't be moving. So that is a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel for Greece, but still a blow nonetheless.
Still a bit of bad news that they really don't need. OK, moving on from Europe to Asia, how are the markets doing so far today?
Well, things are pretty close to closing in Hong Kong, and there's a bit of a bounce back there. You can see up 0.5% on the Hang Seng. That's after China's sovereign wealth fund said that they are planning to invest more in Chinese banking stocks, but you can see there the rest of the markets are still in negative territory.
OK, and the Asian markets haven't been helped by more bad news on the Japanese economy, have they?
Yes, the government there have downgraded their forecast for the 3rd month in a row. They say it's too early to say whether Japan will go into recession, but growth is certainly set to slow further. Of course, on their checklist of worries is the Eurozone crisis, as we've been talking about, a general global slowdown and, of course, in particular, a Chinese slowdown, which many analysts are worried about at the moment. And, of course, recently, bilateral trade between Japan and China has really been threatened by that dispute over territory over disputed territory between those two countries.
The islands, yeah.
There were those protests in China which led to Japanese cars being burned just because they were Japanese, and so that has really affected trade there.
OK, well, a lot of doom and gloom, as tends to be the case these days in the Business Bulletin. Have you got even a shred of good news for us, William?
Oh, well, let's try and find a bit of a silver lining. There's one bit of data out on Thursday that analysts are clinging to as signs that things maybe aren't so bad as possible. This is about shipping data, container shipping in China. Of course, obviously, a key indicator of how well the economy is doing, how well exports are doing. Shipments were up by 10% in September year on year, much above analyst expectations, and maybe a sign that things aren't going to be slowing down as much as possible, as much as we perhaps expected.
All right, well, that's good to know, but I'm afraid that's it for the moment for the good news, because here in France on Thursday saw another factory closure, this time for the firm Technicolor. The decision by the electronics company is the latest in a series of headaches for the recently elected socialist government, which had pledged to cut job losses.
Anger in Angers as staff at Technicolor set fire to the boss's furniture. Just the latest casualties of the economic downturn. The factory's 350 employees are set to lose their jobs manufacturing TV components.
We knew it would come to this. That was their goal. They want to sling us all out onto the street with nothing.
The site in Western France is the company's last in Europe, and it's not the only firm facing upheaval. Thousands of people marched nationwide earlier in the week in protest at increasing numbers of layoffs. Hundreds of Peugeot workers even clashed with police at the Paris Auto Show on Tuesday. The automaker's one of the worst hit in Europe, with the announcement of 8,000 job cuts in July. It's all left the government scrambling to keep up. French President François Hollande ran on pledges he'd end cutbacks and keep struggling sectors afloat, putting 2 mothballed blast furnaces on the political map during his campaign. Despite the government ordering steelmaker ArcelorMittal to keep them open or sell last month, the firm shut them down anyway. The French Parliament's looking at passing a new law within the next 3 months. It'll ban the closure of profitable firms before looking for another buyer to take them over. For Technicolor workers in Angers, however, that move may come just a little too late.
Finally, another story from here in France, which is rather terrifying for those of us who like to chat on the phone. One French woman who racked up, well, rather a large phone bill, didn't she?
Yes, Solène Saint-José, who lives near Bordeaux, she must be quite a chatterbox because she racked up a, well, if you work it out, if you count the zeros, 12 quadrillion euros, near enough.
That's quite a hefty phone bill.
That's
there.
the figure.
How on earth did she do that?
Well, obviously she didn't.
Clearly a mistake.
Clearly a mistake, because that is 6,000 times France's annual GDP. But when she phoned up the telephone company called Bouygues Telecom,
Let's name and shame them.
They said they hadn't made a mistake. Don't be ridiculous. We don't make mistakes here.
No, they said it's calculated automatically,
Exactly.
madam. There's nothing we can do.
Fair enough. And they did kindly offer her that she could, pay it in instalments.
Oh, well,
if she
that's a
wanted
relief,
to,
isn't it?
For
So
the
you
next,
don't have to fork out all
million
the sum
years
in
or
one
something.
go.
But they have obviously now backed down. They've realised it was a mistake. Her actual bill was 117 euros, which is a bit more manageable.
A couple of cheeky zeros crept in there, I think, a bit of an IT error. All right, well, I'm glad that's all worked out for the best. Thanks very much indeed. William Edwards here with that business update. Do stay tuned to France 24, the latest international news coming up very soon.